What year is it? Oh, okay. Okay, that doesn't help me at all. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. It's been a while. It's been a while. I am not really sure what to expect from this season. I don't even know if I should expect to continue making videos about Atlanta United going forward, but it's something new. It's something new to talk about, so I feel like now I actually have a reason to make videos instead of just talking about the same old boring crap that is just the same. We're not good enough. We don't have a good enough board. We don't have good enough players. It feels like we actually have made changes. So first and foremost, obviously, we need to talk a little bit about what happened in the offseason because we did make some pretty big changes. First of all, no more Bocanegra. And truth be told, I don't know much about this Chris Henderson guy other than the fact that he's got a great last name, but I don't really know much about him. I saw some of his stats. Apparently, he was at Inter Miami, which of course they've been getting a lot of praise recently because of certain player. But ultimately, I just think Bocanegra, he kind of lost interest, seemingly. I don't really know what was going on, or if he just got lucky in the first season with some of the pickups that we made. But we really didn't have much of a focus going forward. It didn't feel like there was any idea about how to improve the team. We just felt like we had our transfer strategy. We get some young starlet coming out of South America, and then from there doesn't even matter. Just as long as you get that guy, you get the next Miguel Almiron in the team, that's all that really matters. And we needed more than that. No, first of all, nobody filled Almiron's shoes. You've got P.D. Martinez was not good enough. Ezequiel Barco was not good enough. Thiago Almada, decent, but still not good enough. None of them really were good enough. And on top of that, you didn't focus on the other aspects of the pitch. Yakimakis was a decent striker, but we didn't get anybody that really worked as a striker since Martinez left. The wings, it feels like it's just been a hodgepodge of players. Some are okay, some are good, and then some are really bad. Defense has just been trash. Basically, ever since Parkhurst left, we've not had a good defense since then, and it doesn't feel like, to be fair, that's gotten any better. But I'll talk about that later. And then in the midfield, it's kind of been a little bit of a revolving door as far as players coming in. Maybe they'll be good enough in there, and then they're not really that good, so we get them out. Also have my thoughts on that for this season, but again, we'll talk about that later. But it just felt like our transfer strategy was not really focused, and it felt very messy, I guess is the right word. So with Chris Henderson coming in, obviously we've also got a new coach in Ronnie Delia? I don't remember how to pronounce it. But we got a new coach coming in as well who has a little bit more experience than Pineda did, thankfully, because Pineda may be a good coach one day eventually, but he's coming into his first job at a club that was falling apart at the seams. It was going to be a big ask for somebody with so little experience. So it's nice to have somebody coming in who has been managing for a little while. The only concern that I really have is looking at his career as a manager. He doesn't typically stay anywhere for very long. And granted, the MLS is kind of a league that does not tend to... The idea of the league is to not have one team dominate every single year. So there is going to be a lot of change. There is going to be a lot of, some teams will get better, then they'll get worse, then they'll get better, then they'll get worse. But to bring in a manager that the longest career stint that he had as a manager, I think, is like 3 or 5 years, something like that, but most of them are 1 or 2 years long, tells me that he either falls out with whatever team he's managing, or he has quick success but nothing that's long-term sustainable. That's fine, I guess, in the MLS, but I would personally like to see a bit of a change in that regard. I would prefer that we are successful every year. And I know that's not typical in the MLS, but I kind of hate the MLS because of that. I don't like the fact that it feels like every year it's just this team was really good this year and now they're not because salary cap or they lost some players, or we got to keep it interesting by making it feel like anybody can be a winner, but that's not how competition's supposed to be. If you're a club that does typically bring in better players or you have a better transfer team, you should be a better team. But it doesn't feel like that's how it works. It feels like having more money, having better recruitment, that doesn't matter because you have to be hamstrung by these rules that keep you basically from getting too good. And that unfortunately means that we're not going to see the quality that I think a lot of soccer fans want to see here in America. But that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, as far as Dela, or however you pronounce his last name, I'm sure I'll get it eventually. I'm just not really good with names. From the first game, didn't really see much from him to get excited about or be concerned about. It just kind of felt like this is early days. We're seeing what his lineup is starting to look like. I don't really see much tactical stuff yet, but I'm going to try to figure out where he's going, what his ideas are, because it did kind of feel like it was just sort of testing the waters, testing some of these players out. Some of them, they've only been at the club for a couple of weeks. So I don't know if he's really got in there and implemented any tactical style yet. But from what I've seen, there's at least a more confident feel around the players on the pitch, and that is a welcome sign. But moving on, obviously there were some big transfers as well, and the biggest one to talk about is, of course, Almiron returning. And it's funny because I haven't seen anybody make this edit yet, and if I had the time, I probably would, because it's just such a funny idea for me. But that scene from Avengers Endgame, when they're walking and Thanos is there, and he's got the line, you couldn't live with your own failures, so where does that lead you? Back to me. I wanted somebody to edit that scene with Almiron's face on Thanos, because that's kind of how it feels. Now, granted, it doesn't make sense in the mindset of, obviously, Eels and Bocanegra are not here, and they're the ones that let him go in the first place and didn't bring in quality backup. But it's still, in my mind, is just a funny idea that it doesn't matter who we brought in before, they were not as good as Almiron, so now he's back, and he's probably going to be the best player at the club, even though he is a little bit older than he was the last time he was here. But I think it's a good pickup to get us excited as a fan base, because we've not really had any big signings over the past few years. We've had a couple that have turned out okay. Like I said, Almada was fine at times. He was obviously a gifted player, but it felt like his size was always kind of what held him back from being a truly phenomenal player, because it was a little too easy for him to get bodied off the ball. He wasn't exactly the fastest either, so while he had a good little breakaway pace, it was easy for players to catch up with him most of the time. Giakoumakis, I think, is another one that he was a pretty solid striker, but nothing that really set the world alight. He had some games where he was really good up there and scored some great goals, but nothing that really, it felt like he was about to take off and be the best striker in the league. So Almada is a great pickup because the nostalgia's there. He's still at a point in his career where he could still do it. If we got him maybe 2 years from now, he might not have that same pace and energy that we know he can still bring, that we saw some last night. But the other one that I'm really interested to see more of is Latela, or however you pronounce his name. From his first performance yesterday, I'm kind of excited to see him, because he has just this grit, this desire, this work rate, and having played for, I think it's Middlesbrough for, I think, the past couple of years, I mean, you get that grit and work rate when you're playing in the championship. I mean, that league is one that it's rough. I've watched a couple of games from it, and it's not the easiest to play in. So he's going to come in with a bit of that grit that I think is necessary to have if you're a striker in the MLS, because a lot of defenders are just going to hit you. It's not the most technical league. It's a lot more about being physical. And he looks like he could stand up to it. And he's got a lot of pace too, so he can run at defenders and get in behind them. And we are typically a team that we look exciting when we break out. When we break out at pace, we need that pace that we have from players like Saba or Mosquera when he comes in. We have players that have that breakout pace, but we've not always had that in some of our, like I said, Almada, his pace when he got up to speed was not the fastest. Giakoumakis had a little bit of a breakaway pace, but he couldn't sustain it over a long stretch of grass. It seems like Latela is able to do that. It seems like he does have that capability of breaking away with pace and continuing his run and not letting a defender catch him. And he looks exciting. With the two of them playing off of each other, I'm really looking forward to seeing what combinations that's going to bring, because it's definitely a good pairing from what I saw last night. A couple of the other pickups that we saw, we got Mateus Clich, who I remember seeing a little bit of when he was at Leeds, and he'll hopefully bring in a little bit of experience, a little bit of in the middle of the pitch, because we've not really had a good solid defensive mid in there that can really break up play and do a bit of both sides of the ball as well. It's typically been, we've had players that are either good defensively and can put in a good challenge, but then on the ball they're terrible, or they are good on the ball, but then they don't really provide much defensively. With Cleach, there's a chance that maybe he can do a little bit of both. But outside of that, the only other changes, we saw a couple of young players come in that I don't really know anything about, and I don't know how involved they're going to be. But before we move on to actually talking about the game last night, I will discuss some of the gaps that we still have that I don't think the transfer team did enough to improve on and might cause some issues for us going forward. The first one is still the defense. And I don't know why. I don't know how that this has not been addressed, because it's very apparent. If you know anything about football, you know that you need a good solid defense if you want to be successful. The best teams are teams that can defend well. If you have a good attack, that's great. You'll get your goals occasionally, but the problem is if your defense is bad, you're probably not going to see much of the ball to get your attack involved and to get them down the field and score, because you're going to be defending all the time, because your defense isn't good enough to keep the ball, to keep them out of your side of the pitch. It's just going to be constant. We're sitting back. We're trying not to get scored on, and yet we don't improve. I don't know where Amador or whatever his name is, because I didn't really see much of him because I didn't even watch the playoffs except for I think like one half of one of the Miami games, which I will admit that was funny to knock Messi out and have all the Messi fans get all butthurt about it. That was hilarious. But I didn't see much of Amador to know what type of defender he's going to be. But obviously he's not available. Lennon for some reason is not available. So now what we're stuck with is Edwards, who apparently has been playing for the twos for a while. So it's a big leap to go from Atlanta United 2 up to the MLS. Like there's a very big gap in quality from what I've seen of players trying to go from there to there. And then on the other side, Raul Hernandez, who's not good enough. I've seen it. For the past 2 seasons, I have seen he is not an MLS quality player. Lennon, as much as I don't like his crossing and his technical ability, his work rate is good enough to say he can at least cut it at the MLS level, because he's fast and he works hard and he gets up and down the pitch really well. He just on the ball needs a lot of improvement. With Hernandez, he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have pace. He doesn't have strength. He doesn't have passing ability. I don't know what he brings to the pitch that's good enough for the MLS. And yet we haven't improved on him as a backup option. Like, at the very least, bring in a player who's competent. But we don't even have that with him. So you've got a young player who's not even that young. He's 22. But you've got basically an Atlanta United 2 player at right back. And you've got Hernandez, who is not good enough for the MLS at left back. And we wonder why we gave up 2 goals. Edwards was absolutely getting eaten alive in most of that second half. The second goal, while it's not entirely on him, he is the one that's marking whatever the guy's name was, Prince Owusu, however you say it. He was the one that was there, kind of turned off for a second and let him get him behind to allow the goal. There were a couple other moments where he was easily getting stripped of the ball, giving the ball away too easily, wasn't getting back and defending. And Hernandez was doing what I've seen him do before, easily getting run by, out of position, giving the ball away too easily. He's not a player. But that's what we have, because Lennon and Amador are, I'm assuming, both hurt. And we don't have a good enough backup option there. And then in defense, for some reason, we got Gregerson and Abram. I don't know why. I thought Williams was better than Abram, and yet Abram starts. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if Williams is maybe feeling something. Williams and Gregerson are good. I have seen some games where it feels like they have gaps in their defense. Gregerson, there were times last night where completely lost track of what was going on around him. I didn't see enough from Williams to really judge where he is right now. But they're not great. They're good defenders. They can do the job well enough. But past them, you've got Abram, who's not good enough. He doesn't have pace. He doesn't have a lot of strength. He's not really a good defender. And then Cobb, who's just too young. He might be a good defender. Obviously, he's not as young as he was like 2 years ago when he was first stepping in at 18. He's still too young to be playing at this level. He probably needs like a couple more years, and maybe give him a couple of games in the Open Cup, which we're not in because the MLS is stupid, but that's a whole nother conversation and a whole nother video that I don't want to get into right now. Those are the games where you would want to see Cobb. You'd want to see him get some time against maybe a couple of USL sides, maybe a couple of games where you're playing against MLS teams that don't have all of their best players, maybe on like an international break, because again, MLS likes to play on international breaks because they're stupid. But maybe those are the games where you do see a little bit more of him and he can grow and he can learn alongside some experienced defenders. but he should not be relied on as a backup option when one of your defenders gets hurt. And that feels like he's basically almost there. As soon as one of Williams or Gregerson is hurt, Abram steps in, and then if one of them is hurt or needs a sub, well, now you've got to turn to Cobb. He's your second option coming off the bench. That's not a good enough backup option. He's had a couple of decent games here and there, but he's not ready for this level, unfortunately. And maybe he'll prove me wrong, but early signs are not great. But yeah, that's kind of my big frustration with the transfer team is we didn't improve in defense. But enough of the transfer stuff. Let's talk about last night, the first game of the season, opening game at Mercedes-Benz. I wasn't able to go because I was celebrating my birthday because it was 2 days ago. My birthday was. So happy birthday to me. But I was celebrating and I got to watch the game on TV. For the most part, looked pretty fun. Looked like a fun, exciting game. Looking at it from the more critical point of view, I still do have an issue with our defense. Like I said, I don't think we improved there, and I think it showed when we gave up those 2 goals. It was way too easy. And even after those 2 goals, there were still moments where it looked like we were about to concede and give away all 3 points. And I don't like that feeling. I'm somebody that I prefer my teams to be defensively solid, and then we can work on being exciting going forward. But I like being able to say we kept a clean sheet, and I don't see that happening with the current defense that we have. But going forward, there was a lot of excitement. And I don't know how much of that is down to the coach and what he's trying to do, or even just he's really inspired them and got them working hard and the tactics will come later. But it felt like we were playing with a lot of energy. It felt like the crowd was getting involved as well. So all in all, it was a good game to watch. It was a good win. But starting in the back with Guzan, I think he's still got that little bit of just know-how that a keeper needs to read what's going on and make the saves. Neither of the 2 goals I can really put on him because the first one is a free header at the back post, and maybe a younger keeper can get across and make that save, but it's difficult. When the guy just has all the time in the world, just pick his spot and put it away from you. It's not an easy task. And then the other one is just a ball across the top of the 6. For me, it's just bad defending that nobody's tracking that man as he's coming in, and it's too easy of a cross to let in as well. So I can't really blame Guzan for either of the goals, and he did make some big clutch saves. But at the same time, I do also have to look to the future and say, he's 40 years old. At some point, he is going to start to lose that little bit of an edge. Do we trust Cohen enough to step in and take that position? And frankly, I don't know why he's not being given more of an option, more of a chance to show what he can do. But then again, Guzan is a leader back there. He is a motivator. So maybe that's more so the thinking is you want to get that defense motivated under Guzan. And maybe once they start to click, maybe once they start to work together, that's when you can bring in a bit more of a younger, slightly less experienced keeper, because obviously he's had his experiences as well, playing for, I think it was Maccabi Tel Aviv, maybe. But maybe that's the idea, is you want to have this good quality keeper that has had some good experience. He needs a defense in front of him that is going to already be in place and already know what they're doing before he comes in, so that way they can all start working together. And Guzan is a good leader back there that can kind of get them organized at the start of the season. On the right side, I already talked about Edwards a little bit. He just didn't look that comfortable. And some of that may just be going from MLS Next to the MLS is a big jump in quality. So he may just not have been ready for that challenge yet. And again, it's concerning that that's our backup right back option at the moment. But in the center, Gregerson had some good challenges here and there, had some good moments where he picked off passes, intercepted well, but there were moments where it felt like he was a little behind the play, a little too slow to react, tracking runners, getting in behind. He just doesn't have a whole lot of pace to him, so it does worry me in those moments, but he's got good strength. Seems like he reads the play pretty well, and very tall, so not a lot's going to be getting over him either. Abram on the left side, he has too many gaps in his game for me. Defensively, he's just not really that great. There was one moment where a player just, basically, my dad calls it the fat man, because you just flick it around him and just run, and he's not that fast, and player beat him to the ball because of it. Nearly, if not for the terrible cross that followed, would have been the 3rd goal, I think, that would have won it for them. But it's just too easy to play around him. and he doesn't read the game very well. There's nothing about him as a defender that gets me excited to see him out there. I don't know what's going on with Williams that he didn't start, but I hope whatever it is clears up soon, because I think Gregerson and Williams, we have to have them out there right now, because if we don't, very good chance we're going to be giving up 2, 3, maybe even 4 goals, because it's just not good enough everywhere else in defense. Then Hernandez on the left side, obviously I already ripped into him a lot, but yeah, the fact that he's still here is concerning. The fact that he's still here when we had the chance to say goodbye, see you later, it's concerning that they saw that as something we needed to do, because I don't think we need to have a player like Hernandez, because he's not good enough. I just hope we don't see that much of him. I hope Amador and Lennon come back soon. They just stay fit so we never have to see Hernandez again. But I know that's not realistic because injuries happen. Into the midfield, Cleach, I thought he looked okay. Again, there were moments when our midfield looked way too open, but I thought he looked solid enough in there. First game in the MLS, different league. I don't know where he was playing before coming here. Maybe I should look that up. Strike everything I just said. He's been at DC United for the past 2 years. Go figure. So with that in mind, it is still a different club you're coming into, different manager as well, a new manager. It's going to be difficult to get adjusted to that, so hopefully, given a few games, we will see a little bit more of a growth, because he does have good experience. Yeah, I can remember whenever Laurentowicz came in, there was that concern. First couple of games, he didn't look that good. I remember we signed him from another MLS club. He was older, and I'm thinking, what's he going to bring to the club? And then he became one of my favorite players to watch because he had so much good experience behind him. So I'm hoping with Cleach, we've had a couple of experiments like that with, you look at Alonso, can't remember what his first name was, but Alonso that was in there, he came from Seattle. Dax McCarty came in here as well. Neither of them lived up to that same height that Laurentowicz did, so maybe Cleach is going to be the answer, but I have that concern of, you bring in this experienced midfielder, is he going to be able to lead that midfield? Is he going to be able to bring whoever else is in there along with him and help them grow and command the middle of the park? If he can, great. If not, then we're going to struggle, because we're already struggling defensively, and if you can't control the middle of the field, you're really going to have a hard time seeing out any game. Schlitz, I remember last season, some games he looked pretty solid, and in other games he looked really shaky. So it's been a little bit of all over the place for him. And it's really hard for me to sit here and go, he's definitely going to be good or he's definitely going to be bad. I think only time will tell whether or not he will, I guess, grow and become a good, solid midfielder for us. But there's nothing about his game that immediately stands out for me as far as this is what he's good at. A lot of it is just he does a few things well. He passes pretty well. He defends pretty well. On the ball, he dribbles pretty well. His finishing is okay at times. Like there's a lot of about his game where he's overall decent, but there's nothing else that he does that really stands out and makes him a true quality midfielder. So I feel like we need to start to see some of that, or else I don't really know what he's going to bring to the field. But getting up into the front four, and this is where the real excitement comes in. Because first of all, Almiron on the right side, overall maybe didn't have the impact that he would have wanted to have in his first game for us, our first game back. He got himself an assist, and overall, I mean, he was just really dangerous. It's going to be a bit of an adjustment coming back to the MLS after having played in England for the past few years. But I think early signs are he still has that fight, that desire to run at players, to nip in and out of challenges, to take fouls, set up dangerous chances. He's got a lot of that to his game still, and it's great to see. There are a couple moments where it seemed like he was about to lose the ball, and then all of a sudden just a quick little touch, and he's just gone. And the defenders can't keep up with him. And that's what I remember loving watching in the first couple seasons when he was here. So I'm glad he still has a little bit of that, and I hope he can do it throughout the whole season, because that is something exciting to watch, and I've not been this excited about this club in a while. So it's a nice feeling to have. Moranchuk in the middle. I didn't get a chance to talk about him last season because I wasn't doing videos after he came in. I just wasn't sure about him. I wasn't really sure what to expect. It kind of felt like he was brought in as not the answer to Almada, but something to replace him at number 10. And from the couple of games that I did watch with him in, and then the one playoff game I watched, he looked fine. I didn't really see anything that got me super excited, but now with the new front four that we're seeing, with him in the middle and Almiron coming in from the wide, it does feel like maybe he's going to have a little bit more time and space to operate in there. And he's got a pretty decent left foot on him. He's got some quality. So maybe if he has more time to operate, because last year he was basically the only player in the middle that you had to mark out of the game. And you put one or two players right there on him. Now he doesn't have time to do much. And maybe that's why he was struggling last season when I was watching him play. So maybe now, with Almiron in there, now you've got to focus a little bit more on what he's doing, and you have to put a couple of players on him. Now maybe Runchuk will be able to step up and start to show some of the quality he has. Because from what I saw last night, he looked pretty good on the ball. I do think there's a little bit of lack of quality in the final third that I would like to see a little bit more from him, whether it's his finishing or whether it's that final pass. It's just a little off. But overall, he looked pretty good. And it does get me excited to see more of him combining with Almiron and with Latela. And then on the left side, Saba, he was probably the most exciting player from last season, if I'm being honest, from the games that I watched. He just has this unbeatable energy about him, where it didn't matter what time of the game you're watching, he is 100%. He is flying up and down the pitch. He's working back and winning the ball. He's getting down the pitch, running at defenders, taking them on, creating chances. He just had so much energy. And it was great to see in a team that was so bland and stale for a majority of last season. It was great to have a player like Saba that was so exciting because he was all over the place. He was winning balls on both sides of the pitch, and he was just constantly a threat. So now, with this new revitalized front four, now I'm even more excited to see what he can bring, because he didn't really have much help. So whenever he did have his forays forward and he was trying to do something, there was nobody else up there to really provide him an option. So he ended up just running himself into basically either out of bounds for a goal kick, or he would just try to do something that maybe would create a chance and maybe get us a corner. But for the most part, those forays forward didn't really lead to much. Now I feel like there's a good chance they might. Granted, teams might just start packing it in against us, and if so, he might not have the same luxury to run forward because there's not going to be as much space behind to run into. But that's why it's important to try to get that first goal early, so now the other team has to step out, and then your Sabas can be more effective at getting in behind. But then, of course, the man of the hour, Latela, or I'm going to have to figure out how it's pronounced, because obviously it's spelled Latte Lath, but I'm pretty sure I heard the commentators calling him Latte La, so I don't know. But as far as his first performance, very, very exciting. I talked already a little bit about it, but he just has a good energy about him that was really troubling the defense and causing a lot of issues. There was one early run that he made. I think it took him a little bit wide, but then he cuts inside, does a little step over, makes the defender bite, opens up a little space for himself, gets a decent shot off, and the keeper has to make a good save. Just that little moment got me so excited to see more of him, because there was just something about that, just the way that he confidently took the ball and the way that he confidently took on the defender. There was something about it that just struck me as, this guy's a player. This guy knows what he's doing. He's not another, oh, he's exciting for the MLS. He's an exciting player for the MLS because, oh, well, he's just got a little bit of extra quality about him. No, this guy looks like he could probably be playing at a higher level. Granted, he was at Middlesbrough, and I think the championship is a higher level than the MLS. I don't know much about his stats there, and I guess I could look it up, but I've already looked up too much while doing this video. I would not be surprised to find out his stats at Middlesbrough were solid, because he looks like he would fit in really well at that level. So it gets me excited because I don't think he's that old either, so that means he's got some room to grow too. But getting both of the goals, one of them obviously was just bad defending / keeping that led to a mistake. But the first one gets well up in the air, easily beats the defenders on the cross, puts it in, no problem. It's good to have a forward who's able to do that. I love having a forward who is dangerous in the box and dangerous in the air. So there's a lot about his performance that got me very excited. But looking at the subs that came on, Fortune looked pretty good. Not great, but he's still got at least enough quality, I think, to hold his own in the middle, which is good to have. And if you need to shut up shop a little bit more, now you can bring him on and become kind of a midfield 3 that's holding in front of that back line, which is nice. On top of that, Mascara comes in and obviously gets himself a great goal. He's been a player that I've been very mixed on for most of his career here, because he has these great moments. These great goals that end up on the highlight reel and is probably going to be goal of the month, maybe in the top 10 for goals of the year, because it's a great finish. but his overall play does tend to leave a lot to be desired, and especially now that you've got Almiron and Saba, and you've still got Silva waiting on the bench. You've got these guys who are good quality players. I just don't think Mosquera has enough to his game to really be an effective player for us. However, coming off the bench, he's got a lot of energy, and he does have these moments where all of a sudden he can do something like what he did to win the game. He has that in his locker. I just don't see it enough to get excited whenever he comes on the pitch. You know, even when he's having that shot, I'm sitting there criticizing him. I'm sitting here going, I just don't trust that he's going to do anything with, and then he buries it. And that's what he can do. To be fair, that is what he is capable of at times. I just need to see it more consistently for me to really get excited to see him coming on the pitch. So I just think overall from what I've seen, I think Xande Silva is probably a better option going out there. But if Mosquera can continue to provide that, then might change my tune on him. We see Williams come in for Gregerson, which didn't really get that change because I thought Abram and Edwards needed the changes a lot more than he did. I mean, at that point when he came in, Edwards had just given away the ball for like the 4th, 5th time in a row. So I was just sitting there going, he needs a sub, but I don't know how you switch it around. Maybe Cobb can go play out there, but it's fine. Good to see him get some minutes, and hopefully that means we'll see him more in the future. And then Cobb comes on, and that just kind of shored up the defense by having him drop in and becoming a third defender in there. Because I think at that point he came on for Latte La. So it was like Almiron went up to striker, and we were playing more so with back 5, and Saba and Miranchuk kind of just in behind the striker. But yeah, with Williams and Cobb, you know, they both came in, did okay. Obviously, Montreal still created their chances near the end of the game, so it wasn't phenomenal defending from them, but I think it's still early days, and we'll see. You know, like I was saying earlier with Cobb, he might still be too young, but he could prove me wrong. He could come in and be a quality defender that steps into the first team and looks really good. And playing alongside a bit more experienced defenders like Gregerson and like Williams, maybe he'll grow and be one of our better defenders going forward. But at the moment, I just don't really trust a young defender like Cobb to go in and be effective. And then the final one, and this is just, I mean, I'm not going to get too much into the referees because it's the MLS, the refs suck, but TRA trying to come on for Almiron, and then for some reason, they held him, and we had to play down a man for the final minute and a half. From what I understand, because I asked my dad who was at the stadium, and he said the ref basically said that he wasn't allowed to come on because Almiron was taking too long to come off. I didn't see that. I thought he was getting off pretty quickly. Like it didn't feel like he was walking off and taking his time and tying his shoe. I didn't see anything that looked like time wasting. So I'm not entirely sure why that was allowed to happen. Why the refs were just like, oh no, you guys have to play down a man for the final minute and a half. First of all, I mean, the fact that it was 10 minutes, where the hell did 10 minutes come from? It was one head injury, which did take like probably 2 or 3 minutes. And then maybe a couple more injuries. Nothing that lasted more than like a minute and a half. I'm thinking like, okay, so 5 or 6, right? 10 minutes is just ridiculous. I don't know where they got that from. But then to make us play down a man for the final minute and a half, it felt like the referee was just, come on, Montreal. Come on. Go deal with them. Go get that final goal. Go get a point out of this match. It felt stupid, but again, it's the MLS. I should be used to seeing the refs be this bad. But the fact that TRA is an option coming off the bench, we also have another forward. I can't remember his name now. I want to say it's like Yoshigawa, maybe. Pretty sure it's a Japanese striker. I don't know much about him. Again, probably could do some research on him, but like I said, I've already done enough Google research in this video. But I think TRA, as far as a backup striker, is a good option. When he was our main striker at the end of last season, because we didn't go get another striker after we sold Giacomakis midway through the season, I didn't think that was a good choice because he's solid. I don't think he's a good choice for your main striker, though. I don't think he's going to get you a goal every game. He might get you a goal every other game or 2 goals every other game, but he doesn't seem like a consistent striker. But he's a good option to bring off the bench, especially in a game where maybe Latte is just not quite getting the job done, or maybe just needs a break, maybe needs a game rest because we've got several in a row because the way the MLS is set up is stupid. Maybe something like that. He's a good option then. He should not be your main option, though. So I like having him coming off the bench. I like having him as the secondary striker because he's much better than some of the secondary strikers we've had over the past several years. So it gets me excited to see whenever he does step on the pitch. I'm glad to finally be able to talk about Atlanta again. I know this was a bit of a long one, but I had a lot to get through because I've not talked about Atlanta United in a long time. But I feel like I can actually get excited for these games. I feel like I'm excited to go to the stadium again and see them. And if things are going well, who knows, maybe even try to catch a couple of the away games as well. It used to be fun. You know, I remember in the first couple seasons when we were exciting to watch, we did have the question of, wouldn't it be cool if there's a way for us to go to the away games, if we could get tickets for those as well? And so now that I'm pretty sure they have the season ticket holders are able to get like first access to away tickets or something like that. I don't remember how all of that works, but they brought in that option either last year or the year before. And I just remember thinking like, there's no point anymore. I don't want to go on the road and watch us get beat because that what a waste of a trip that would be. But now, who knows? I might try to go on a few because my family are season ticket holders and could be fun. We'll see where it all goes, but those are my long-winded thoughts on Atlanta United right now. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the off-season and on the first game? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United reviews. Also, check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on there as well as some Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.